My name is Brian. I'm 32 years old, and for as long as I can remember, I've been the fixer in my family. You know the type, the one who quietly steps in when things fall apart, the one who smooths over conflicts, who always shows up even when no one else does. For years, I played this role not out of a desire for praise or recognition, but because I genuinely believed that's what family did. You stand by each other even when it's inconvenient, especially then. But over the years, I realized something painful. In every family photo, I was the one on the edge, half cropped out, while my younger sister Sophie always stood front and center, flanked by my parents, like the sun around which we all orbited. Sophie, the golden child. The one whose ballet recitals, report cards, and college acceptance letters became family milestones. When Sophie got engaged to Daniel, a guy from a wealthy family with a name that carried weight in their circles, it felt like the final coronation. My mum was ecstatic. She talked about connections, about how this wedding would be a statement, a way to prove our family could keep up with the high society circles Daniel's family belonged to. I mostly stayed quiet, nodding, when asked, helping where I could. I didn't see the point in making waves. After all, I had accepted my role long ago, the supportive brother, the silent benefactor. But then Sophie called me the night she got engaged. Not to gush, not to share her excitement, but to ask for help with the deposit for the wedding venue. $500, she said almost casually. It's just to lock in the date. Daniel's parents will cover the rest. You'll get it back. She didn't ask if I was okay with it. She knew I had the money. I always had the money. And like a fool, I wired her the full amount that same night. I should have seen it coming. That deposit was just the beginning. Next came the catering, a last-minute change because the initial vendor wasn't elevated enough. Another $800. Then the photographer, the florist, the custom sound system for the quartet. The costs piled up, and I covered them all, piece by piece, until the wedding looked more like a royal gala than anything Sophie could have dreamed up on her own. And I didn't even question it. Not until one evening during a family group call, I heard my mom bragging about how generous Daniel's family had been, how they had really come through for the wedding. She gushed about how lucky Sophie was to have found a family willing to invest so much in their future together. I waited for someone to mention my name. They didn't. I stayed silent, telling myself I didn't care that I wasn't doing this for recognition, but deep down it stung. Then came the real blow. 2 weeks before the wedding, I got a text from my mum. Not a call, not even a proper conversation, just a flat, clinical message. You're not coming to the wedding. Daniel's family thinks it's best if you sit this one out. No hard feelings. I stared at my phone for a full minute before it registered. I thought it was a joke, some awkwardly worded reassurance that I didn't need to dress up or something. But no. I called my mum, straight to voicemail. I called Sophie. Same. I texted both of them. Nothing. 3 hours later, my mum sent a follow-up. Please respect their wishes. It's not personal. Not personal? I sat in the dark for a long time after that. Phone still in hand, thinking about every dollar I had sent, every event I had been excluded from, every time I had swallowed that little voice in my head, whispering that something wasn't right. And that was the moment I realized for the first time in my life that I was done. In the days that followed, I tried to push the anger down. I told myself I didn't need their validation, that this wedding wasn't about me. But the silence from my family, the cold, calculated exclusion cut deeper than I cared to admit. I thought back to all the times I had been there for them. The first time Sophie called me for money, she was just 19, struggling to pay rent after a bad breakup. I covered her bills without hesitation. When our dad needed a new water heater because the check from his seasonal job hadn't come in yet, I paid for it. I never asked for a thank you. I never asked for payback. I just did it because that's what family does. But now it felt like I had been cut from the family tree without warning. As the wedding day approached, my phone remained silent. No calls, no messages, not even a courtesy text from Sophie. I began to wonder if they even remembered I existed. Then, a week before the wedding, I got a voicemail from my Aunt Carla. She's my dad's sister, one of the few people in my family who had always treated me with genuine warmth. Her voice was cautious, almost conspiratorial. "Brian, I just heard that you're not going to the wedding. That can't be right, can it? I thought you paid for the venue and a lot of the other things. Call me when you get this." I didn't call her back right away. I needed time to process what I was feeling, the anger, the betrayal, the deep aching hurt of being treated like an outsider in my own family. Then it hit me I had signed every contract. The venue, the catering, the florist, the photographer, all of it had my name on the paperwork. I had been the one to make the deposits, to lock in the dates, to commit thousands of dollars without a second thought because I trusted my family. But trust once broken is a powerful thing. I pulled out my laptop and opened my email. The first message I sent was to the venue coordinator. I asked them politely but firmly about the cancellation policy. They replied within an hour. I was well within the window for a partial refund, and the date would be released immediately upon my request. I cancelled it. Next, the caterer. Same situation. They had my card on file, my signature. I asked for the cancellation terms. Another partial refund. Done. Photographer cancelled. DJ gone. Florist relieved, actually. Apparently Sophie had been tweaking the arrangements every other day, driving them to the brink. By the time I was done the wedding, they had planned the grand spectacle they had cut me out of had vanished, and I didn't say a word. I just let the silence stretch. A few days passed, then a week. The wedding was set for Saturday. I knew they'd find out eventually, just not from me. I figured they'd either be too distracted to notice or too arrogant to imagine that I'd actually walk away. That Saturday morning I went for a walk. I left my phone behind, ignored the news, ignored social media. I wanted the distance, the space between me and whatever chaos was unravelling. I knew right about then guests were arriving to a locked venue with no chairs, no food, no music, no flowers. I imagined Daniel's mother pacing Sophie, crying, my mum trying to reach me, her voice tight with rage and desperation. When I finally got home, my phone was vibrating off the counter. 67 missed calls, 43 texts, 6 voicemails. The top message was from my mum. "Brian, what did you do? People are showing up and nothing is here. The venue is locked. There's no food. No one is answering. Call me." Below that, a message from Sophie. "This isn't funny. Fix this." And then one from Daniel. "My parents are furious. You better hope I don't see you today." I didn't respond to any of them. I just sat down on the edge of my bed, staring at the flurry of notifications like they were written in a different language. All that urgency, all that sudden concern. Where had that energy been when they decided I wasn't good enough to stand beside them on that day? I opened the first voicemail. My mum, again, panicked. She sounded like she was pacing while leaving it. "Brian, I don't know what you think you're doing, but this is not okay. People flew in for this. Do you understand how bad this looks? We need you to call the venue now." The second was Sophie, her voice trembling with barely contained fury. "I cannot believe you would do this to me after everything I've done for you. You're ruining the most important day of my life. This is disgusting, Brian." I almost laughed. Everything she had done for me. My thumb hovered over the next voicemail, but I didn't press play. I had a feeling it would be the same guilt outrage attempts to twist the situation around, like I was the villain for not quietly funding the entire fantasy and then vanishing like a good little ATM. But I wasn't angry anymore. That was the strange part. For the first time in years, I felt light calm, like a weight had finally been set down after years of carrying it around on my back. This wasn't about money, not really. It was about being treated like a human being, with boundaries, with feelings with value beyond my bank account. I made myself a cup of coffee and took it out to the small balcony of my apartment. The sun was high, the air sharp and clear. I could hear distant traffic, the quiet bustle of a Saturday that for most people was just another day. For me, it felt like a reset. As I sat on my small balcony, the breeze cool against my face, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time: peace. I sipped my coffee slowly, letting the warmth spread through me, grounding me in a moment that felt almost surreal. The sun hung high, the sky clear, the city below me, moving on with its usual Saturday chaos. I imagined the scene unfolding at the venue. I had cancelled guests in suits and cocktail dresses, standing around confused and frustrated, staring at locked doors and empty chairs. I imagined the whispers, the angry murmurs, the frantic phone calls. They had no idea I had pulled the plug. They had no clue that every carefully curated detail, every extravagant touch, every last flower petal had evaporated overnight because I finally chose myself. And for once I didn't feel the need to apologise. By early afternoon the calls had slowed. My phone, now resting beside me on the balcony table, buzzed occasionally, but the frantic ringstorms had given way to quieter, more desperate attempts. I ignored them. Then just after 3 p.m, my phone lit up with a call from my Aunt Carla. For a moment I considered letting it ring out like the rest, but something told me to pick up. "Brian?" she said, her voice breathless, tinged with something between panic and disbelief. "What's going on? Your mom just called me sobbing, saying you ruined Sophie's wedding. Is that true?" I took a deep breath, choosing my words carefully. "Carla, I didn't ruin anything. I just stopped paying for it." There was a long pause on the line, the kind that stretches into something more meaningful than silence. "What happened?" She finally asked, her tone softer, more concerned than accusatory. "They told me I wasn't welcome," I said simply, my voice steady, surprisingly calm. "After everything I did for them, after all the money I poured into that day, they cut me out, so I chose to walk away. That's all." She sighed a long, drawn-out breath that seemed to carry the weight of years of family tension. "I had no idea, Brian. I thought you were just being your usual quiet self, staying out of the spotlight." I almost laughed at that, staying out of the spotlight, if only it were that simple. "It's okay, Carla," I replied. I needed to finally stand up for myself." After we hung up, I felt a strange sense of finality, like a door had quietly clicked shut somewhere deep in my mind. Later that evening, as the sun dipped below the skyline, my phone rang again. This time it was Sophie. I let it go to voicemail. She called again, then again. On the 4th try, I answered. There was a brief, sharp silence on the line before she spoke. "Brian." Her voice cracked, a mixture of anger and something close to fear. "You really did it, didn't you? You cancelled everything." I leaned back in my chair, looking out over the city, the lights flickering on like scattered stars against the concrete and glass. "Yes," I said simply, "I did." "How could you—" She choked out, her voice trembling. "You ruined my wedding. You humiliated me. Do you have any idea what you've done?" I let the silence hang for a moment before responding. "Do you have any idea what you did to me, Sophie? Do you—" She sputtered, caught off guard by the sudden steel in my voice. What are you talking about? I didn't do anything to you." I closed my eyes, the memories flooding back. "You cut me out. You excluded me from every part of this wedding, then had the audacity to ask me to pay for it. You treated me like a wallet, not a brother." Her silence was deafening. "I was good enough to bankroll your dream day, but not good enough to stand beside you while you celebrated it. I was the one who paid for the venue, the catering, the flowers, the band. I signed those contracts. I took on that financial responsibility. And you repaid me by cutting me out of my own family." I heard her breath hitch on the other end, a small strangled sound. You don't understand, Brian." She whispered, her tone desperate now. "It wasn't my idea. It was Daniel's family. They said it would be better if you weren't there. They didn't want any distractions." I felt a bitter, hollow laugh rise in my throat. "Distraction." I repeated, tasting the word like something sharp and bitter. "I was a distraction." "I'm sorry." She said the words rushing out in a panicked stream. "I didn't think. I thought you'd understand." Understand, I shot back, my voice finally rising. Understand that my own sister would rather cut me out of her life than stand up for me, that you would throw me aside for the sake of appearances. No, Sophie, I don't understand that, and I never will. There was a long, shuddering breath on the other end of the line, the kind that signals the end of an argument, the last ragged gasp before the final blow. What do you want me to say? She whispered, her voice small, broken. I leaned forward, staring at the reflection of my own tired eyes in the glass of my balcony door. I don't want you to say anything, Sophie, I replied, my voice as calm and steady as the concrete beneath my feet. I just want you to remember this moment. Remember how it felt when someone you trusted pulled the rug out from under you. Because that's exactly what you did to me. And with that I hung up. I set my phone down, feeling the cool metal against my palm, the slight tremor in my fingers slowly fading. I had drawn a line, a hard, unbreakable line, and for the first time in years I felt free. For the next few days I kept my phone off. I didn't want to hear the endless voicemails or see the desperate texts piling up. I needed space not just from Sophie and my mom, but from the version of myself that had always bent over backwards for them. But silence, I quickly realised, has its own weight. On the third morning after I hung up on Sophie, I finally caved and powered my phone back on. It buzzed like a hive notifications flooding in. I scrolled through them, slowly, letting the chaos of their panic wash over me. Brian, please call me. This is a disaster. Mom? You can't just ignore us forever, Sophie. We need to talk now. Daniel, I set the phone down, my heart surprisingly calm. I had half expected a wave of guilt to crash over me, but it never came. If anything, I felt lighter, free even. Then as I scrolled further, a message from Aunt Carla caught my eye. Brian, I don't know what's going on, but I'm here if you need to talk. I just want you to know that you matter, even if they don't always show it. I felt a sharp pang of gratitude. Carla had always been one of the few people in my family who saw me for more than just my checkbook. She had been there for me when my dad passed, had helped me navigate the messy aftermath of that loss, and had always treated me like more than just a financial safety net. I hit the call button before I could second-guess myself. She picked up on the second ring. Brian? Hey, Carla, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Thanks for the message. I appreciate it. She hesitated, her breath crackling through the line like static. Do you want to talk about what happened? I mean, I've been hearing all sorts of things, but I'd rather hear it from you. I closed my eyes, leaning back against the cool metal of my kitchen chair. It's simple, really, I said. I paid for almost everything for Sophie's wedding. The venue, the catering, the band, the flowers, all of it. And then 2 weeks before the wedding, I got a text from Mom telling me I wasn't welcome. Silence. Wait, Carla finally said, her voice tight. They uninvited you after you paid for everything. Yep, I replied, letting the word hang in the air like a stone dropping into deep water. Apparently, Daniel's family didn't want me there. Said it would be better for optics if I stayed out of the spotlight, and my own mother agreed. I heard her inhale sharply, the kind of breath you take when trying to hold back a curse. Brian, that's outrageous. I smiled, a bitter, twisted thing. Yeah, well, I decided I wasn't going to be their silent benefactor anymore. I cancelled everything. The venue, the catering, the flowers, all of it. Another long silence, then a low, bitter chuckle. Good for you, she whispered. It's about time someone reminded them that you're not just a walking ATM. I felt a knot in my chest loosen just a bit. Thanks, Carla. I needed to finally stand up for myself. And you did, she said firmly. You absolutely did. After we hung up, I felt a strange sense of closure, like I had finally said something that had been building in my chest for years. The next day, I got a message from a cousin I hadn't spoken to in years. It was a screenshot of a Facebook post from one of Daniel's relatives, a long, rambling rant about ungrateful family members and entitled siblings who ruin everything. I laughed out loud. They were already spinning their own version of events, rewriting the narrative to paint themselves as the victims. Typical. I closed the message without responding. But later that night, as I sat on my balcony, the cool breeze brushing against my face, I felt the faint stirrings of something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Maybe this was the beginning of something new. Maybe for the first time in my life, I could finally be more than just a shadow, more than the forgotten son. A few days after my conversation with Aunt Carla, I decided it was time to clean up the last remnants of this whole mess. I opened my laptop, scrolled through the hundreds of emails and messages I had been ignoring, and started drafting a single final message. The subject line was simple: a few things you should know. I addressed it to my entire extended family, every cousin, every aunt, every uncle, even a few second cousins I only ever saw at funerals or awkward holiday gatherings. I attached the receipts, the bank transfers, the contracts I had signed. I didn't want to leave room for doubt, for whispers behind closed doors, for the twisting of truth that my family was so fond of. In the email, I laid it all out. How I had paid $24,000 for Sophie's wedding, covering everything from the venue to the catering to the floral arrangements. How I had been cut out of every major decision, ignored at every turn, treated like a walking checkbook rather than a brother. How in the end I had been uninvited to the very event I had funded, reduced to nothing more than a silent, invisible benefactor. And how I had chosen to walk away not out of spite, but out of a long overdue respect for myself. I ended the email with a simple, unvarnished truth. I don't expect anyone to pick sides. I just want you to know mine clearly, calmly, and without the years of rewriting and gaslighting that have too often followed situations like this. I wish Sophie and Daniel well. I hope they find the happiness they deserve. I simply will not be a part of it anymore. Then I hit send. I leaned back in my chair, the faint hum of the laptop fan filling the silence around me. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and felt the tension slowly drain from my body. It felt good, better than I had expected. The fallout was immediate. By noon, my phone lit up again. Not with hate, surprisingly, but with messages from a few cousins I barely knew that well. Quiet, private messages. I had no idea, man. I'm sorry. If you ever want to grab a drink, let me know. I'm Team Brian. We all kind of knew they treated you badly. None of us said anything. That's on us. I didn't respond to most of them. I appreciated it truly, but this wasn't about validation. It wasn't about burning it all down for a cheering crowd. It was about walking away from a life where I was expected to swallow everything and pretend it tasted fine. Of course, my mum eventually responded too, a long, rambling email full of justifications and half-hearted non-apologies. We didn't mean for it to escalate. We were under a lot of pressure from Daniel's family. You should have communicated better. Family is about forgiveness. She even tried the emotional card. You know your father would have been heartbroken to see us like this. I didn't even finish reading it. I archived it and blocked her number. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even hurt anymore. I just didn't have anything left to give her. The final blow came about a week later, though I didn't know it until Aunt Carla called me laughing so hard she could barely get the words out. Apparently Daniel's family, so obsessed with status and appearances, hadn't taken kindly to the wedding fiasco being exposed publicly. Not because I had leaked anything, but because one of the guests, some distant cousin of Daniel's, had posted about it on Facebook in graphic, humiliating detail. A local gossip blog picked it up, and then a regional news outlet. Wedding disaster, $100,000 celebration ends at an empty venue with angry guests. Daniel's family was mortified. Their carefully curated image took a hit. There were talks about legal options, but nothing ever came of it because, again, all the contracts were tied to me, and I had been legally in the clear. Daniel apparently started pulling away from Sophie almost immediately afterward. Whispered accusations, tension, resentment. The cracks widened until 6 months later they filed for divorce. I didn't celebrate it. Divorce is ugly, it's painful, even when the people involved are selfish and shallow, but in the privacy of my own mind, I acknowledged a truth I couldn't ignore. They had built their marriage on sand, on lies, on entitlement. And when the tide finally came in, they were shocked to find no foundation beneath them. As for me, I moved on. I switched jobs, left the city I grew up in for one, where nobody knew me as Sophie's brother or the one who always helped. I built a new life, smaller, quieter, but infinitely more mine. I stopped showing up just because I was expected to. I stopped answering calls that only came when someone needed something. I stopped making excuses for people who wouldn't do the same for me. And I started living, really living. I travelled, took up photography, made friends who knew me not for what I could give, but for who I was. Sometimes late at night, I'd think about them, my old family, and wonder if they ever truly understood why I left. If they sat around holiday tables with a conspicuous empty chair and whispered about how I changed, about how cold I had become. Maybe they did, but more likely they just replaced me with silence. Families like that are experts at rewriting history. Either way, it didn't matter. I wasn't their ghost to summon anymore. I was free. And this time it wasn't because they allowed it. It was because I took it. Story 2. They say family is forever. But for me, forever always felt like a sentence. I'm Ava, 29, now living a few hundred miles from where I grew up in a city that finally feels like my own. But back then, I was just a disposable piece in a perfectly staged family portrait. The daughter of 2 image-obsessed professionals, Gregory, a high-powered tax attorney, and Natalie, a relentless realtor with a smile sharp enough to cut glass. They had me young in their early 20s, right when their careers were taking off. And from the moment I was born, I got the unspoken memo I wasn't supposed to complicate their lives. Our house looked like something out of a magazine, granite countertops, showroom furniture, everything in its place. But behind those designer curtains, it was chaos wrapped in denial. The rules were clear: don't talk back, don't ask for attention, and whatever you do, don't embarrass the family. I wasn't a daughter, I was a prop. I didn't realise how deep it ran until I hit high school. Every accomplishment of mine honour roll debate championships, even a published short story was met with. That's nice, Ava, now go set the table. My wins were never theirs to celebrate. But if I ever made a mistake, they clung to it like proof I was the weak link. Things really blew up during my senior year. Natalie suddenly stopped working, no warning, no explanation. She just quit, said she needed space. Meanwhile, Gregory got let go from his firm after a major internal shake-up. 2 6-figure incomes evaporated almost overnight. And guess who became the outlet for their frustration? Me. I was juggling AP courses and a part-time job at a coffee shop to save for college, all while trying not to drown in the tension at home. When I landed a scholarship that covered most of my tuition, I was ecstatic. I thought stupidly that they'd be proud. Instead, they wanted to know if the money could go toward the mortgage. Let me repeat that. My parents, 2 grown adults, asked if my scholarship could bail out their lifestyle. Gregory said I should defer college and be an adult about this. Natalie suggested I could take a gap year and focus on family first. I said no. That's when they told me about the college fund my late granddad had left me, the one I'd been counting on for textbooks housing the basics. They'd emptied it. No warning, no conversation, just gone. They used it to pay down credit cards and lease a new SUV. That was my last straw. I moved out 3 weeks later. I picked the state university in another city, packed my things while they were at brunch, and left a note on the kitchen island. It wasn't poetic, just I can't do this anymore. Don't call. I got by on student loans, waitressing nights, and tutoring during the day. It was brutal, but I was finally breathing air that didn't reek of judgment and control. I made friends who didn't ask me to shrink. I built a life out of ramen noodles and second-hand furniture, but it was mine. Fast forward 6 years. I've got a stable job in tech, a cozy apartment, a cat named Digit who thinks she owns the place, and a tight circle of friends who feel more like family than anyone I share DNA with. I changed my number, blocked their socials, and I haven't looked back. Until last week, I got an email from a new address. Subject line, "We miss you, Ava." The body of the message was your typical guilt-ridden nostalgia bomb. Gregory and Natalie said they were proud of the woman I'd become, that they understood things were tense before, and here's the kicker they wanted to visit. Said they had a surprise for me and hoped I'd be as excited as they were. No mention of the years of silence, no apology, just a sunny rewrite of history like none of it ever happened. I replied with 4 words, "Please don't visit me." They didn't take the hint. 3 days later, I started getting texts from extended family. My cousin Leo, my Aunt Cheryl, even my dad's old college buddy of all people, all of them hitting the same note they're trying. Give them a chance. One message actually said, "Family is all we've got." I stared at that for a while, then I deleted it. The truth is, every surprise they ever gave me had strings attached. A guilt trip disguised as generosity, a lecture wrapped in fake concern. I didn't need another one. But the messages kept coming. Apparently Gregory and Natalie have been in therapy. Apparently this surprise is a trust fund they've set up in my name, supposedly as an apology. I should have felt something, gratitude, validation. Instead, I felt nauseous. Because this wasn't about closure, it was about control, again. And when I told them politely, I might add that surprise visits and financial gestures weren't the way to rebuild trust, they still didn't get it. Natalie wrote back saying boundaries shouldn't exist between family. Gregory said he felt disrespected that I refused their gift. Of course, they framed it like I was the cold one, the distant, ungrateful child refusing to forgive, as if money could erase a childhood spent walking on eggshells. Then came the kicker. My aunt called and said, "They know where you live. They just want to talk. Don't freak out." Don't freak out. They know where I live. I never gave them my address. I didn't sleep that night. Just knowing they had my address without me ever giving it to them sent my mind spiraling. I live in a quiet part of town. My apartment isn't listed publicly. I've always kept things tight. But somehow they got through. Maybe through a relative, maybe through some online deep dive. Either way, the message was clear boundaries only matter if they set them. I emailed them again that morning. Not emotional, not angry, just firm. I said, "If you show up at my home, I will not open the door. I will call the police. This is not a game, and I need you to understand that you are not welcome in my space without my consent." Natalie replied within the hour. Her message started with, "We never thought we'd be treated like strangers by our own daughter," and ended with, "One day you'll understand we were only trying to love you the best way we knew how." Classic. They've always done this thing, make me feel like I was the one breaking something, that I was being too cold, too unforgiving. But love without accountability isn't love. It's manipulation dressed in warm words and tidy punctuation. Then Gregory emailed me separately. His tone, less sugar, more shame, said I was repaying kindness with cruelty, that after all they'd done for me, the house, the clothes, the private education, it was disgraceful to shut them out now. That phrase, "all they'd done for me," hit a nerve. Because I remember every dinner skipped so I could babysit my cousins without pay. Every textbook I bought with tip money while they drove a leased BMW. Every therapy session I paid for just to undo the damage they refused to see. Later that day, my friend Mina called. She's been my rock since freshman year, back when we were broke, overwhelmed, and surviving on cold pasta and sarcasm. She'd heard from someone in our shared hometown that my parents were telling their version of events. Apparently at a recent community event, Natalie played the victim card like a seasoned pro. Said I'd become estranged, that I refused reconciliation, and that they'd even offered financial help to make things right, but I rejected it. No mention of the manipulation, the stolen college fund, the guilt tripping, none of it. Just a sad story about a daughter who forgot where she came from. And maybe that's the part they'll never understand. I didn't forget. I remembered everything. That's why I left. The next few days felt like a pressure cooker. I started getting DMs from random people, some I hadn't spoken to in years. One message read, "You should be grateful. Some of us would kill to have parents who care." I blocked them. Then came the knock. It was a Thursday. I'd just finished up work, still in my hoodie and sweatpants, heating up leftover curry, when there it was, 3 quick taps on my apartment door. My stomach dropped. I froze. Digit my cat shot under the couch. I didn't look through the peephole, didn't breathe. I just stood there, heart hammering, like it was trying to break free from my chest. Then I heard the voice. It was Gregory. He said, "Ava, it's just us. We came all this way." I stepped back quietly, slipped into my bedroom and locked the door, phone in hand. I texted Mina, "They're here." She didn't even ask what I meant. She just replied, "Call security, now." So I did. The building staff came up 10 minutes later. By then, my parents were gone. The front desk said they'd waited in the lobby for a while, asked about my unit, and were told per policy that no tenant information could be shared. The front desk clerk told me Gregory looked embarrassed but determined. Natalie apparently smiled and said, "We just wanted to surprise her." Surprise again. I didn't cry, I didn't scream. I just sat down on the edge of my bed and felt empty. Like some wire inside me had finally snapped. I wasn't scared. I was exhausted. Later that night, I wrote them one last email. It was short. "You showed up uninvited to my home. That was a violation, not love. This ends now. Any further contact will result in a restraining order. Do not test me." I didn't sign it with "Love, Ava," just my name. They didn't respond, not directly. But the next morning I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. Voicemail. It was my cousin Julia. She sounded concerned, said she'd heard from Natalie that I was threatening legal action and that everyone's worried about me. Worried, as if I was the unstable one for not wanting to be ambushed in my own home. It's wild, isn't it? You build your life from the ground up piece by piece without a safety net, without the people who were supposed to be your safety net. And when you finally find balance, they come back just to shake it. By the end of that week, I'd changed my phone number, again. Locked down my social media, talked to my building manager about updating my lease records to confidential. Even started looking at apartments in another town just in case. And the worst part, I still felt guilty. That's what years of emotional gaslighting does to you. It rewires your brain, makes you think you're the one who's being harsh. That wanting peace somehow makes you heartless. But I know the truth. I know what they've done. And I'm done pretending it's fixable with a check or a hug or a therapist's signature on a shared narrative. This isn't about forgiveness. This is about survival. A few weeks passed. Quiet ones. No emails, no mystery phone calls, no knocks on my door. I let myself breathe for the first time in what felt like months. Mina and I joked that maybe they finally got the message. Maybe the threat of legal action did the trick. But in the back of my mind, I knew better. My parents don't disappear, they regroup. It wasn't long before I found out what they were up to. Mina had gone to a mutual acquaintance's birthday party back in our hometown. She wasn't there for 10 minutes before someone mentioned my name. Apparently, Gregory and Natalie had been making their rounds, telling people that I was going through something and isolating myself from family. They weren't just spinning a story, they were painting a full portrait of me as unstable, cold, ungrateful. The words stung even though they were coming from mouths that never truly knew me. But it wasn't the lies that got to me, it was the predictability of it all. They had always cared more about perception than people. Always about the image, never the truth. But the truth has a funny way of surfacing. Later that night, Mina texted me a photo. She'd pulled a move I wouldn't have had the guts for. She confronted them, calmly, publicly. Told the room exactly what had been going on. The emotional manipulation, the college fund theft, the unwanted visits, the fake reconciliation, all of it. She said Gregory just sat there, arms crossed. Natalie went pale, then defensive. It's more complicated than that, she said, but no one was buying it. After that, I noticed the family messages started drying up. No more passive-aggressive guilt texts, no more veiled threats about what you'll regret later, just silence. And for the first time, that silence felt like peace. I used that time to finally do something I'd been putting off. I moved. Just a few towns over, nothing dramatic, but far enough that I felt like I could breathe again. New apartment, new routines. Even Digit seemed more relaxed, curling up in sunbeams like she knew something had shifted. Mina helped with the move. As we unpacked boxes and folded blankets, she looked at me and said, "You know, you don't owe them anything just because they share your blood." She's right. It took me a long time to untangle that idea. That family equals obligation. That being a good daughter meant swallowing mistreatment and calling it love. But I'm not that girl anymore. I don't jump at every olive branch they shove in my direction. I don't ache for their approval. I don't need it. They tried to buy my forgiveness. They tried to force closeness through surprise visits and public performance. But they never tried listening. Never once said we hurt you and we were wrong. Instead, they told a version of the story that made them the victims, and me, I was just the plot twist they couldn't control. Eventually, I sent one final message, just a short email. "I wish you peace, but I am no longer available to be your daughter in name only. Please do not contact me again." That was almost 6 months ago. I haven't heard from them since. No calls, no emails, no surprise visits. They're out of my life now, not because I hate them, not because I want revenge, but because I finally understand that love without respect is just control wearing a smile. I've built something better. A home where I wake up calm, friends who see me not who they want me to be, a version of myself that no longer flinches at every "we just want to talk." I'm not angry anymore, not really. I'm just free. They may still tell their version of the story in their church groups, dinner parties and holiday cards. Maybe they say I'm lost. Maybe they call me selfish. But I know the truth. I saved myself. And that's something no one can rewrite. Story 3. I hadn't been back to Willow Creek in over a decade. 10 years. That's how long it had been since I'd packed a duffel bag, walked out of my childhood home and swore I'd never let them touch any part of my life again. And yet there it was, sitting on my kitchen counter like a landmine wrapped in gold foil. A wedding invitation. My cousin's wedding, to be exact. Natalie's. We were close once before the rift that split our family like tectonic plates. She wanted me to be her maid of honour. And for a second, just a second, I felt something real. Hope, maybe. Then I saw the names at the bottom of the envelope. Love, Natalie and Ryan. P.S. Aunt Carla and Uncle Mark are thrilled to see you again. My parents? The same people who told me at 16 that they regretted wasting money raising a daughter. That all they ever wanted was a strong son to carry on the name and run the family business. I was a disappointment before I even got a chance to try. My name is Lauren Fields now, not Lauren Mitchell. I shed that name like dead skin the day I left. My grandmother, my dad's mom, was the only one who ever made me feel like I mattered. So I took her maiden name when I got my first official ID in college. And now after years of silence, they want me to stand at the front of the church, like everything's fine. I was still staring at the envelope when my phone buzzed. "Natalie, did you get it? Please say yes. You have to be there. You're the only person I trust to stand next to me." I sighed, walked to the window and watched the Chicago skyline fade into dusk. Me, "I'm thinking about it. You sure about this?" Natalie, positive. "Ryan keeps saying you're a legend. He brags about you more than I do. Said you're the kind of woman who gets shit done." Funny how life works. I was now the CEO of a fast-growing tech firm with 2 venture deals under my belt and a 3rd in progress. Industry press was starting to call me a quiet disruptor, which made me laugh, because quiet. Yeah, that ship sailed years ago, but my family had no idea what I'd built. They never asked. Not until now. Later that evening, I was still weighing whether to reply when Jordan, my partner at the company and probably my closest friend, walked in with 2 coffees. "You've got that face," he said, setting the cup down. "Is it the quarterly numbers or family ghosts?" "Yes." "Wedding?" "Worse," I said. "My parents want to talk. At the wedding." He didn't even try to hide his disbelief. The same people who said college was a waste of money because you'd just end up married off. Yep, apparently they've had a change of heart. Jordan raised an eyebrow. People don't change. They just get better at hiding what they really want, especially when they need something. I nodded slowly, sipping the coffee. He was right, of course. Something was off. That night I got another text, this time from Mia, my best friend since middle school. "Mia heard through the grapevine your parents are telling people they're so proud of their daughter's success. Grocery store talk says you're coming home to save the family business. That true?" I stared at the message, my jaw tightened. No, it wasn't true. It wasn't even close. But something was definitely going on. The next morning I met Natalie at a cafe downtown. She looked nervous, which was rare for her. "I didn't know how to say this over the phone," she started. "But my parents are in serious financial trouble. Uncle Mark made some bad calls. The business, the house, it's all falling apart. And they think you're the solution." There it was, the truth. My success only mattered now because they were drowning. Natalie looked miserable. "They're going to try to corner you at the wedding. Maybe before. I just didn't want you walking in blind." I leaned back in my chair, letting that sink in. "So they're parading around like they're proud, acting like I'm riding in to rescue them." She nodded. "They're even planning a welcome dinner the night before the wedding. You're the guest of honor. Local papers covering it. They've already told people you agreed to help." I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was so them, crafting a public story they had no intention of backing up with truth. That night, Jordan stormed into my apartment, tablet in hand. "You need to see this." He shoved the screen in front of me. A local business site had published a glowing article on the Mitchell family legacy, quoting my dad about how family always steps up in hard times and that his daughter was returning to take the reins. I wanted to scream. Instead, I just stood there shaking. "They're already spending your money," Jordan muttered. "What are you going to do?" "I'm going," I said, "but not for them." He narrowed his eyes. "You sure? Because this smells like a trap." I grabbed my phone. I don't know what it was, instinct maybe, but I didn't sleep well after texting Natalie. Something told me this wasn't just about money. And sure enough, when she showed up at my office the next morning with a half-empty iced coffee and worry lines she didn't use to have, my gut was right. "They've been telling everyone you offered to help," she said, sitting across from me. "Like not just speculation, they're acting like it's already happening." I raised an eyebrow. "That why the welcome dinner is in the society pages?" Natalie flinched. "Yeah, they spun the story fast. And now there's pressure. People are expecting something big from you." "They don't even know me anymore," I muttered, turning my monitor toward her. "But you know what's interesting? My parents didn't suddenly decide to love me when I got successful. They just realized they could use me." Natalie hesitated. "They're going to ask you for money at the dinner. It won't be subtle." "How much?" I asked. $500,000, she said quietly. "To keep the business and the house. $500,000. I stared out the window. Funny, the people who told me I'd never amount to anything were now banking on my success to stay afloat. "I need to be honest with you," Natalie added, twisting her ring. "Francisco and I overheard them at our rehearsal dinner. They're telling folks you're coming back to take over the business. They're using your name to make deals. Early loans even." I blinked. "They're leveraging me for capital I never agreed to provide," I asked slowly. She nodded. That was all I needed to hear. Jordan burst in a few minutes later. He must have gotten my text. "They've gone full fraud," he said, tossing his tablet on the desk. "Your dad's quoted in an interview this morning. Said his daughter is stepping in to preserve the family legacy." I felt it click. You know that moment when your brain stops trying to rationalize and just accepts what needs to be done. That was me. "They want to play this game," I said. "Fine, but I'm not the naive girl who left town." Jordan leaned forward. "You're going to hit back, aren't you?" "Not loud," I said. "Not messy. I'm going to be strategic. I'll show up. I'll smile. I'll wear the suit they can't afford. And then I'll remind them who I became without them. Jordan smiled slowly. You're planning something. Of course, I said, but it's not revenge, it's exposure. That night my phone rang. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail, but a text came right after. Hi, honey, it's Mom. We can't wait to see you at the dinner. Your father and I are so proud of everything you've done. We've missed you dearly. I showed Jordan the message. He didn't even blink. Fake warmth, he said. Soften you up before they ask for your wallet. Let's see how soft they stay when I don't play along, I muttered. The night of the dinner, I showed up in a tailored navy suit that cost more than their entire living room set. Mum air-kissed my cheeks like we hadn't been strangers for a decade. Dad poured me champagne like I was the prodigal son they'd always dreamed of. Lauren, sweetheart, he beamed, we've told everyone about your company. Richard from First State Bank is dying to talk with you. He's very impressed. Interesting, I said, sipping, considering I haven't shared any numbers publicly. Silence. Richard coughed into his drink. Mom laughed too brightly. Oh, you're such a joker. I walked over to the bar where Mia was waiting. They've been talking you up all night, she whispered. It's like you're royalty. Your mom's practically glowing. She's glowing, I said flatly, because she thinks I'm here to save their asses. That's when Dad cornered me near the hallway. Can we speak privately? He asked. I followed him into his study, the same one where he once told me no one would ever take a woman like me seriously in business. We've had our differences, he started, but family supports each other. I just looked at him. You didn't support me. His jaw tightened. We're trying to rebuild, and we thought, maybe with your help, we could turn it into something we all share. How much, I asked. He named the number. It was even higher than what Natalie said. This isn't an investment, he added quickly. It's family. We're blood. That matters. I stood up slowly. You're not asking me to join something. You're asking me to fund a bailout and smile about it. That's not fair, he snapped. What's not fair, I replied, is using my name to get loans without asking. What's not fair is pretending I owe you something when all you ever gave me was a complex about existing in the wrong body. The door opened. Mom stepped in. Everything all right? She asked. Dad said nothing. Mom took over. We're proud of you, Lauren, truly, but we need you. You've always been the smart one. We were wrong not to see that earlier. I tilted my head. If you had called, said you wanted to fix things, that'd be one thing. But this, I waved at the room. This is manipulation in a suit and tie. Mum lowered her voice. If you back out now, people will talk. You'll embarrass all of us. I smiled without warmth. Let them. I walked out and went straight to Mia. You okay? She asked. Better than ever, I said. Let's give the local paper something real to write about. A reporter approached me just as I grabbed another drink. Any comment on the family business merger? Oh, yes, I said smoothly. There's a very exciting announcement coming, right after the wedding. It's about legacy, but not the kind you're thinking. Later that night, Jordan called. You serious about the announcement, he asked. I am, I said, and I'm done playing nice. Let's finish the paperwork. It goes public the moment I'm done with my speech. Hell yes, he said. You want me to handle press release? Yep, get it to every outlet we know. Mia popped her head into my suite. Have you seen this? She handed me her phone. A new article was trending, Mitchell family rebuilds empire with daughter's support. They were doubling down, even after our conversation, even after everything. I shook my head. They really don't know me, I said. Then remind them, she replied. I opened my laptop and pulled up the final draft of my speech. It was time. The next morning my mom showed up at my hotel. You can't announce anything without us reviewing it first, she said as soon as she walked in. I didn't even look up. You lost that privilege when you started signing my name to deals I never approved. Don't ruin this for your father. No, I said calmly. He ruined this for himself. You're being cruel. I'm being honest, for once. You'll regret this, she whispered. No, Mom, I said, looking her in the eye, you will. After she left, I hit send on a message to Jordan. Press goes live the moment I finish my last sentence. Let's show them what a real legacy looks like. The morning of the wedding, I stood in front of the mirror and didn't see the girl who left Willow Creek 10 years ago. She was gone. What stared back was someone they didn't raise, someone who survived despite them. I slipped on the deep green dress Natalie picked for me, elegant, simple, and stronger than anything I used to be. Downstairs, the lobby buzzed with wedding chaos. My mum was holding court in a cream suit, telling a group of relatives how Lauren's speech will honour the family legacy. I nearly laughed. What legacy? One built on rejection, manipulation. Let them enjoy the fantasy. They'd feel the truth soon enough. Natalie looked radiant, one of those brides who didn't have to try. Francisco couldn't stop smiling, and the ceremony was sweet, short, full of meaning. I stood beside her, held the bouquet, fixed her veil, and when she whispered, "Thank you for coming," I squeezed her hand and said, "Always." Because this wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about truth. The reception rolled in with too many cameras and even more assumptions. Everyone wanted to know what the big announcement was. The DJ tapped the mic. And now a few words from our maid of honour, Lauren Fields. I walked to the front slowly. I didn't rush. I wanted every step to land. My parents sat near the stage front and centre. My mother's phone was already aimed at me recording. Perfect. I looked at the crowd, took a breath. When Natalie asked me to stand with her today, I was honoured. Not just because she's my cousin, but because she's one of the few people in my family who never treated me like an accident. You could hear a pin drop. I wasn't supposed to be here, not just here at this wedding, but here at all. There were years where my parents acted like I stopped existing the moment I wasn't born with the right chromosomes. People shifted in their seats. A few looked toward my parents. But I built something on my own. No help, no inheritance, no safety net, just late nights overdrafts and a whole lot of silent prayers. And now they say they're proud of me. They say I'm coming home to save the family. I paused, let that sit. I'm not. Murmurs rippled through the room. What I am doing is starting something new. Today I'm launching the Fields Foundation, named after the only woman in my family who ever believed in me, my grandmother. I opened the envelope I'd brought on stage. It begins with a $1 million endowment, and its mission is simple: to give full scholarships and mentorship to girls told they aren't enough. Girls erased by their families, girls like me. My mother's phone dropped into her lap. The room was silent, eyes wide, mouths open. I've been told legacy means blood name empire. But that's not legacy. Legacy is who you lift when no one else will. Legacy is how you use what you've built to light the way for someone else. I looked straight at my parents. And for the record, any statements made about my involvement in the Mitchell family business are false. I am not returning. I am not investing. And any loans made under that assumption will be thoroughly reviewed by legal counsel. Dad's face drained white. I raised my glass. To Natalie and Francisco for reminding me what real family looks like. Chosen, earned, unconditional. The applause hit like thunder. My father stormed out. My mother followed, stiff and silent. But I didn't chase them. 2 hours later, the news was everywhere. A journalist had been in the audience. The headline read, "CEO launches Women in Tech Fund publicly rejects family who disowned her." It was trending by morning. Jordan called me from New York. "You went viral." "Good," I said. "Let the truth breathe." That night, Natalie knocked on my hotel door. "They're panicking," she said. "Uncle Mark tried to stop one of the investors from pulling out. It's chaos." "I didn't create that chaos," I said. "They did. I just turned the lights on." She nodded. "You did the right thing." "I did what they never taught me," I said. "I chose integrity." 3 days later, I flew back to Chicago. The inbox was full. Foundations, tech firms, women's colleges, everyone wanted to partner. I was building something real, not from spite, but purpose. Until one morning, I got a knock on my office door. Mia peeked in. "You have a visitor." It was my mother. I almost didn't recognize her. She looked small, tired, older than I remembered. "I don't expect forgiveness," she said, "but I came to say I was wrong." I studied her. I didn't speak. "I let your father convince me that being born a girl was a burden, that our name mattered more than your spirit. And I watched you become everything we said you couldn't. You built something sacred, Lauren, and I helped none of it. I want to help now, even if it's just filing papers." I nodded once. "You'd start as a volunteer. No titles, no credit." "I wouldn't ask for either." "Then show up Thursday morning." She blinked. "You'd let me in." "No," I said quietly. "You'd earn your way in, just like I did." She left without fanfare. No hugs, no drama, just a quiet exit. And honestly, that was enough. Weeks passed. She showed up every Thursday, quiet, humble. And slowly she started to see what I'd spent 10 years building. One day Jordan nudged me. You know, it's kind of poetic. The daughter they disowned is now teaching them how to be decent humans. I smiled, calm as patient, but thorough. At the first scholarship ceremony, I stood on stage in front of a room full of girls and their families. My name is Lauren Fields, I said, and this foundation exists because once upon a time I was told I didn't belong. Today I'm here to say you do. In the back I saw my mom. She clapped like she meant it. Dad wasn't there. He probably never will be. That's okay. Because I built this world without him. And now I'll use it to make sure no girl ever has to walk alone like I did. Because in the end, legacy isn't what you inherit. It's what you choose to leave behind.